February 19th marks the anniversary of the deadliest massacre in Washington state history. On that day in 1983, 13 people were killed during a robbery at a gambling club in what became known as the Wah Mee Massacre. 2 of the men involved were quickly captured and later convicted of robbery and murder. A third man, Tony Ning, remained at large until his eventual capture nearly 2 years later in Alberta, Canada. I'm King 5's Sebastian Robertson. Join us as we look back at what was described as a gut-wrenching moment in Seattle's Chinatown-International District history.
Police were called to Maynard Alley just before 1 o'clock in the morning. There, they found a man lying in the sidewalk with a bullet in his head. The man directed police to a nearby doorway. The door was forced open. Inside, police found 13 people lying in a sea of blood.
But they were bound hand and foot and shot to the head.
The dead were all reported to be Chinese, 12 men, 1 woman, ranging in age from 20 to 60. The building is known as the Wah Mee Social Club. It is located in the heart of Seattle's Chinese neighborhood. This morning, it gave up a ghostly parade of bodies. Police said it is a known gambling den where people have been arrested before. They found evidence that a game was going on last night, one that possibly involved a large sum of money, suggesting that robbery may be the motive. A robbery by 1 or more people who had to be acquainted with the victims. The killers had to pass through a securely locked door, manned by an attendant, and equipped with an observation hole.
If they were known, they were admitted, you'd assume that somebody in there knew who they were. If they didn't want to get apprehended for the robbery, the only way they could do is eliminate them all, I would guess.
Police said more than 1 gun was used. Several different caliber bullets were found. The guns may have been equipped with silencers. The people who live above and around the club heard nothing at the time of the shootings. Police have arrested 2 suspects. They are questioning a third. Meanwhile, the sole survivor of this mass murder, the man found shot in the alley, is in critical condition under armed guard at Harborview Hospital.
That only survivor, whose name is being withheld from reporters at this time, is in serious condition now, suffering from a gunshot wound in the neck. When he was brought in, he was in critical condition. One police officer describes the scene of the murders as the most grisly he has ever seen. Grisly beyond belief, he said. Late this afternoon, Seattle police announced the names of the 2 suspects arrested in the case. They are 20-year-old Benjamin Ng, of Chinese descent, and 19-year-old Willie Mack, also of Chinese descent, both from the south end of Seattle. A third suspect was questioned and released. Police say they are still seeking a third suspect whose identity is unknown. The survivor and the 13 people killed in the massacre were brought here to Harborview Hospital this morning. The families were brought in to view the bodies to see if perhaps their father or brother or son who did not come home last night perhaps was among those who were killed. A sad mission for many, many people.
Started tomorrow sometime, probably after 10.
Have all the people been identified?
Yes, we believe all the people have been identified.
Have all the relatives been notified yet?
Not necessarily. Some of the relatives seem to be out of the country.
Seattle police say that 9 people have been positively identified and their relatives notified. 4 people are still, at this point, tentatively identified. Once again, the suspects' names, 20-year-old Benjamin Ng and 19-year-old Willie Mack. At a news conference which just ended a few moments ago, police said those arrests were made this morning without incident.
That it's robbery.
What was taken?
Cash.
How much? Did you find that cash with the suspect?
We have served 2 search warrants in the south end of the city this afternoon, and a good deal of evidence has been recovered, and I'm not at liberty to discuss the details of that evidence.
Police say that the arrests were made without incident. 1 man arrested in his bed at home. The other turned himself in, telephoned police, and was subsequently arrested.
A steady rain washed over Chinatown, adding a somber note to the grim news. But by mid-morning, the tiny stores and restaurants opened, signaling a return to regular weekend business. In the Highlight Cafe, 1 block from the killings, the usual crowd gathered. Men talked among themselves. This is not a big Chinatown, and they wondered if they knew any of the victims. At the Daiton Cafe, a similar scene. Regulars showed up for tea and dim sum. They said little openly. But those who were willing to talk could only express their shock.
Before, I just came in earlier, and then that's when I found out, and it was shocking.
The landlord of the building where the victims were gunned down had little to add. He thought the killings would scare away few people.
It may scare some people off for a while, but then I think they'll be coming back after it wears off.
The news might have even attracted more people to Chinatown. One popular restaurant just up the street from the murder scene was busy, and customers went about their shopping at the Wah grocery to the delight of the owners.
Oh, fine, yes. It seems to be, everything seems to be just like normal.
But everywhere there was a general reluctance to talk. The Chinese keep to themselves, and in this case they're not talking, out of fear and out of tradition.
Just last weekend, Seattle's Chinese celebrated the Chinese New Year, wished each other good luck and a long life. Now, because of the murders, the worst in Seattle's history, they can only hope the rest of the new year will bring them better fortune. In the International District, I'm Linda Tyra, King 5 News.
Authorities are also looking back on a double murder at this Beacon Hill house. 2 Chinese women were bound and shot here last summer. The murders were never solved, but Benjamin Eng and Willie Mock's brother were picked up for questioning in that crime. They were never charged. Today, the King County Medical Examiner released some details from autopsies performed on the Wah Mee victims. His report confirms earlier suspicion that the murders were conducted execution style.
The location of the gunshot wounds varied from the side to the top of the head. Some did, in fact, show gunshot wounds to the back of the head. There were the graze wounds, which simply indicated to me that the accuracy was off in terms of firing.
The victims were hogtied, a nylon cord loosely knotted wrapped about the hands and ankles, each face down on the floor. The gunman, using small caliber weapons, shot each victim in the head. One was shot 3 times. It appears the gunman went methodically from person to person. The only victim not bound was the doorman. It's suspected he was shot last, perhaps as the gunman left the club. The shock and horror of this crime has coursed through the International District. The shops are open, but business is conducted with a certain sadness. Sadness for the victims' families, and sadness that the events of last weekend may suggest an erosion of traditional Chinese values, an ending of the old ways. This was a routine bail hearing for people arrested over the holiday weekend. 20-year-old Benjamin Eng on the left and 22-year-old Quan Willie Mock on the right did not expect less than an extraordinarily high bail, according to their lawyers. But what they got was no bail at all. District Judge Betty Taylor Howard ordered them held without bail, saying she was not inclined to set bail while the police were looking for other suspects. It's expected that the King County Prosecutor's Office will file murder charges against the young men in the next few days. Little is known about Willie Mock. His high school principal couldn't remember him. Benjamin Eng is apparently better known. He was arrested but not convicted in the shooting of 4 men. His present lawyer defended him in that earlier case.
I know him as a client from a few years ago. That case was disposed of to our satisfaction because almost everybody involved felt it was a case involving self-defense. I got to know the family very well. It seemed like a normal family situation. He seems a lot younger than he appears. That's really all I can say.
It was the worst mass slaying in Seattle history, and one of the worst ever in the country. Sometime before midnight that evening, 3 men entered the Wah Mee Gambling Club, hogtied 13 patrons, most of them owners or workers from nearby Chinese restaurants, and then systematically shot them in the head. The medical examiner would later say that 29 shots in all were fired. Some victims were shot 2 or 3 times as they lay face down on the club floor. Just before 1 a.m., police found the bodies in a river of blood. The intruders had fired at 14 men and women in the club, but one victim, 61-year-old Wai Chin, survived, crawled out into the alley, and later identified his attackers. Within hours, police picked up 2 of the 3 suspects, 20-year-old Benjamin Eng, no relation to the man just arrested, and 22-year-old Willie Mock, both Hong Kong-born, both recent immigrants to the United States, and both one-time students at Cleveland High School. In the summer and fall of last year, both were tried and convicted on multiple counts of aggravated murder. But the jury could not agree on a death penalty for Eng. His sentence, life in prison without parole. Willie Mock was given a death sentence, and he will spend tonight, as he has since late last year, on death row at the Walla Walla State Penitentiary. The case was closed, except for Tony Ng, the third man in the Wah Mee Club that night. He slipped away and managed to elude police for more than a year and a half, until this week.
For the public, it was gruesome, cruel, and horrifying.
Bad memories, really.
For Linda Marr, the Wah Mee Massacre was where her parents were murdered.
Reading my mom and dad's name and basically just broke down and was bawling like a baby. I remember that. It's terrible.
Jean and Moo Minmar were at the Wah Mee Club February 19, 1983. That night, Willie Mock and Benjamin Ng walked inside, killed 13 people, robbed the gambling hall, and the International District was never the same. Tony Ng was there too. He helped tie the victims up and take their money. Unlike the others, Ng was not convicted of murder, and the chance of his release from prison has always lingered. And now it's reality.
I don't think anybody wants somebody who killed a loved one out back in society.
King 5 was at Ng's last parole hearing in August. He said he'd learned a lot and took responsibility for his actions. He also asked for the community's forgiveness. Friday, he got what he wanted. The parole board determined he was fit for release.
Knowing that it was going to be a very unpopular decision, difficult to explain, especially to the victim community, that causes me to lose sleep.
Some relatives of the victims couldn't believe the news. One hopes Ng steps in front of a bus.
Can't do nothing about it anymore.
Marr always knew this day would come. She's just ready for Tony Ng to go away.
I already see it on TV, and it's already bad enough. I don't like looking at him.
A history lesson in one of Seattle's oldest neighborhoods.
You still see a lot of the buildings that are, the same. They've been remodeled.
69-year-old Ron Chu, a longtime journalist and editor for the International Examiner, calls the Seattle Chinatown-International district his home, which was forever changed 40 years ago.
Having the Wah Mee murders happen in this neighborhood was pretty gut-wrenching.
Sunday marks 4 decades since Washington's deadliest mass shooting, when 3 men robbed and killed 13 people in the Wah Mee Club, a closed-door gambling establishment in a basement storefront along Maynard Alley in the Louisa Hotel.
It traumatized everybody, certainly the Chinese community, because we knew a lot of those folks. They were considered our uncles. They were our folks we grew up with, their kids.
He says the media coverage at the time, and even in some instances in recent years, has perpetuated stereotypes and misrepresented what this community stands for. In that same vein, Chu believes the neighborhood is not getting the support it needs.
Still struggle with issues of poverty down here, crime, and substandard housing.
As Chu reflects on the last 4 decades, he hopes a tragedy like the Wah Mee Massacre never happens again, and hopes his home will continue striving to reach its full potential.
40 years is a long time. The neighborhood has changed a lot, but it still struggles to find its voice and to be listened to in a way that it deserves to be.
Thanks for joining us on this look back at the Wah Mee Massacre. For King 5, I'm Sebastian Robertson.